Have you ever wondered how the H2B visa program works? Does it steal jobs from Americans, or does it create opportunities? Today, I interview Chris Pooley, an immigration attorney, and my client Rich Leeman from Landscape Technology Group about how to take advantage of the H2B program and some tips for networking and really getting the most out of it. My name's Jack Jostes, and welcome to the Landscaper's Guide to Modern Sales and Marketing podcast. This show is all about helping you increase your sales and marketing and enjoy a better lifestyle. And to do that, you're going to need great employees on your team. Now, the H2B program is kind of complicated, and it's something that I'm continually learning about. And I hope you enjoyed today's episode where Chris and Rich share several decades of experience in working with this nuanced program. All right, folks, here we are with Chris Pooley and Rich Leeman, and we're going to talk today about H2B visas and how to get them for your landscaping company, and some common challenges that the green industry faces, and some tips that I didn't know about from Chris. So I'm here with Rich Leeman. Rich is the owner of Landscape Technology Group up here in Vail. He and I do a bunch of marketing work together, and one of his buddies is Chris Pooley. So Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? Where are you from?
I'm an immigration lawyer, originally from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Been in the Valley here since 2003. I do lots of H2B visas for landscapers.
And so tell us, for people who are watching that maybe aren't familiar with H2B visas, what are H2B visas? And I learned before we started rolling that there are actually 4 different kinds. So what are they?
Well, H2B workers are non-agricultural temporary workers. There are 4 categories. Most landscapers are seasonal. Seasonal is if you do it one part of the year, but you don't do it the other part of the year. Peak load is if you do it year-round, like hotel maids, but they have a peak load need for more hotel maids during the peak seasons. Third type is intermittent need. That might be hurricane relief or disaster relief, where sometimes they need extra workers, sometimes they don't. The last category is one-time need, which might be a one-time construction project or something like that.
Okay, so for most of the people watching who run landscape companies, they're going to be wanting to get H2B visas for seasonal work, right?
Right.
And I mean, I suppose some of them could be doing a one-time construction project, but that's typically not the case, right?
Right. Typically, most H2Bs are seasonal.
And so one of the things that you had shared with me was that there's an optimal time to get H2B workers, and what is that? Explain that.
That's right, Jack. There's a quota of 66,000 H2B visas. 33,000 become available on October 1st, which is the beginning of the fiscal year for the federal government. The other 33,000 become available April 1st. Every year, in recent years, there's been about 100,000 applications for 33,000 visas. So you are in the pole position with the best chance to get an H2B visa if you have a seasonal need that starts on April 1st. Like Rich, his seasonal need is April 1st through November 30th each year. Colorado has a well-defined landscaping season, which is April 1st through November 30th each year. It's different in different areas of the country.
So what if I do snow removal? What if I'm in an area of the country where I'm available to keep people year round? We do snow removal, we do landscape design and construction, different things like that. Would I want to try and get in for that for the October one, or talk to me about that?
Well, if you're in that situation, and I have clients in that situation that do landscaping in the summer and snow removal in the winter, and the great thing about that is we call them rollovers. If you roll over from an H2B landscaping job, April through November, you can roll over to the winter snow removal job from December through March, and rollovers are not subject to the quota. The quota is only applicable to new H2B workers coming in from outside the U.S. or changing to H2B from another visa category.
Okay, so does that mean that I could potentially have one person stay with me for a whole year?
That's right, but there's a limitation on stay, which is 3 years. So once they've rolled over for 3 years, they have to leave the U.S. for a time period before they can come back in on an H2B visa.
And is that time period, isn't it like 90 days or something?
Right, yep.
So if I rolled over for 3 years, could I come and left for 90 days, could I then come back and roll over again? Or
Yes.
does it? Okay.
Yes. And in fact, with the COVID, there's been exceptions to the 3-year limitation. They've made exceptions because of COVID. So, the tip is, well, for the summer season, ideally, to be in the pole position, you want an April 1st start date. Because if you have a start date in June, like a lot of employers do, they're pretty much locked out of the quota unless they have rollovers, because the quota is going to be filled with people with April 1st start dates. In the winter season, the pole position is an October 1st start date. But the snow doesn't start flying here October 1st. And so, the farther you get out from October 1st, the more likely the quota will be reached before you get your workers. Is, typically, I don't know, it's gone sometime in January. Due to COVID, the U.S. consulates have been closed, and they were taking visa applications from workers who had had visas in previous years, because part of the process of getting a visa is you have to go into the consulate to have biometrics taken, which are digital photos and digital fingerprints. So somebody who's already had the visa before, they have their digital biometrics, they have their digital photos, they have their fingerprints, and so they can issue a new visa without having to let them into the consulate to get the biometrics done. And so, an employer who hires an H2B worker who has not had a visa in the past might not be able to get a visa due to COVID because they don't want to let them in the building.
So how do they work around that?
There is no workaround.
Well, shucks.
No, so what it is saying is that if you know of a person that's worked for a hotel or seasonally in the winter, that then they can compliment you in the summer, then that's somebody who's been there. It's not necessarily you have to look for the worker who has worked for another landscape company. So it's looking for the person that's been on the resort at Martha's Vineyard, that's been up in Washington, that's been in Hawaii or something like that, working for a hospitality industry, and they want to work year round or have that opportunity. So that's where you could be searching.
That's great. And one of the things, Rich, while we were here, you were networking with everyone who worked here. You were getting people's phone numbers and networking, and everyone knew somebody. So that's one of your tips is to network.
Correct. Network and find the person that has a H2B visa. They may not be interested in working that summer, but they're probably working with a company that has 5, 10, or 15 or 20 other H2B workers with them at the moment, and they could spread the word around that you'd like to have them stay for the summer.
Cool. One of the things that, some people say is that the whole H2B program takes jobs away from Americans. But a lot of what I've heard from many landscapers is they can't find Americans to do the work. And one of the things that I learned from you is that you actually feel like it allows you to create different jobs in your company. So tell us a little bit about that.
Correct. So our landscape season in the mountains here is actually from about April 1st through November 30th, where we can be working and installing trees, patios, shrubs, and flowers. But what we have a difficult time with then is being able to have a workforce from the beginning to the end. A lot of times you'll find that we could be getting some college kids that are available from May 15th to August 15th, but there's a shorter period of time where our season is another couple months on either side of what they would be available for. But more importantly, what it allows me to do when I can get an H2B worker is it allows me to hire recent college graduates that do have their degree in landscape architecture, horticulture, in project management, because then they have the job of what they went to school for and are able to manage workers underneath them.
So basically, the H2B workers create jobs for U.S. workers. It's a misconception that they take jobs away from U.S. workers, because H2B workers the employers have to jump through more hoops than just about any other non-immigrant, which is a temporary visa category. They have to pay prevailing wage. They have to advertise, do recruitment to show there are no U.S. workers available. And then they create jobs because, Rich can employ more administrative staff, more managerial staff with more H2B workers.
And one of the things that I didn't know about was a J visa,
Right.
and that unlike J visas, with H2B visas, you have to pay a prevailing wage.
Right.
So I think there's a misconception out there that, H2B workers they're going to get paid less, and that's going to decrease what people can get paid in the local market. But that's not the case. So talk to us about prevailing wages and J visas and all these different
Sure.
nuances.
I mean, I'm not here to say anything bad about the J1 program, but the H2B program has protections for U.S. workers. The J visa program doesn't. J visa doesn't require prevailing wages. J visa doesn't require you to show you can't find a U.S. worker. And
Right. So we're at a hotel right now, and so what do you think most hotels would use between the J visa and the H2B visa?
well, every employer would prefer to have H2B workers, I think, because with the J1, typically you don't get the same worker coming back year after year. I mean, with H2B, it's the same workers year after year. They're trained, and they bring that knowledge from the previous years with them. Whereas typically with the J1s, it's new workers every year.
But one of the challenges, or one of the things that I was curious about, was wages and what you do pay people. Because in most industries, if you have somebody who's coming back every year, they're increasing their skill and their value to the organization, you'll pay them more. But I think there are certain restrictions with what you can pay people with the same job title. So kind of talk to me about that.
Oh, sure. So under the H2B program, you have to have the same wages and working conditions for U.S. workers. So it can raise the wages for U.S. workers, in fact, because you can't pay a U.S. worker that does the same job as an H2B worker any less than the prevailing wage rate. And then you can have wage differences between workers in the same occupation as long as it's based on experience and performance.
And Chris, you primarily work with companies in Colorado, but you also have clients out in other states, right?
Yes.
So what are some of the challenges that you've seen, or mistakes maybe that you've seen in particular landscapers make either in Colorado or in other states when working with the H2B program?
I mean, sometimes new clients don't have a well-defined seasonal need. It has to be an annually recurring seasonal need. And how Department of Labor usually determines that is by payroll summaries. They want to look at the number of landscape laborers employed each month, the total wages paid each month, the total number of hours worked each month. And so those numbers have to be higher, say in Colorado, for April through November than they are December through March. So if an employer has more workers in the off season, pays more wages in the off season, has more hours worked any one of those months in the off season, they might not qualify for the H2B program.
I've been involved in the H2B program since 2003 when Chris moved into the Valley here as well. So we've been business partners trying to help me with my employees for a long period of time right now. What it really is what Chris expressed. It's you have to have your paperwork in line. You have to show your seasonal need through the months of when you need them. So then you also have to show the seasonal need, but then also you have to be able to employ them the whole time, because the other end of the H2B program is you have to employ them a minimal amount of hours per week.
Right, they have to have a minimum of 35 hours per week, and then the employer has to guarantee 3/4 of the hours for every 12-week period.
So they are hourly.
Yes.
And you have to guarantee 3/4 of their hours.
Right.
Got it.
So I guess you just can't bring in employees and have them work a part-time basis. You have to make sure your business and prove to the government that you have a seasonal need to employ the amount of employees you want to have, at least 3/4 of the time. In our case, it's more. And you have to show that consistently over the past years.
Well, and that comes into the show really with marketing, right? And creating enough demand for your business. So let's talk a little bit about sales and marketing. Rich, you've been working in the Vail Valley for nearly 25 years now. What are some of the things that you've seen change during that time from a sales and marketing standpoint, and what's really working for you now?
Well, I'd say steps in with you a little bit, but more recently with COVID, a lot of our clients want to work remotely or talk with us remotely. So we're doing a lot of FaceTime calls with clients, Zoom calls with clients during the bidding phase, design phase, and then even on the job sites, we'll be walking around with cameras showing them the work we've done on a daily basis or weekly basis as well. And with that too is our webpage, we're really taking a step up because people are searching for us on the web, and they're not necessarily going to the past print types of magazines and such in the past, or even newspapers and such. So we're making a conscientious decision to use the web, our web page, in Google to be found.
Yeah, and people are searching, and in particular in the Vail Valley, there are a lot of second homeowners. There are a lot of people who are, maybe their full-time residence is out of state, and they're looking online to see, who does landscape design. Tell us a little bit more about how have sales changed with Zoom and video conferencing and maybe meeting with people less in person, and do you think that's going to continue even as restrictions release?
I really think so. For our company, we thought we had to meet the client in the beginning, the middle, and the end, in person, shake their hands, have the contract signed in person. But in today's world, there's DocuSign. There's the fact that the client can see you with the project lifetime right behind them when you're placing the patio, when you're choosing, if we're going to a store to choose a fireplace or to choose the outdoor kitchen and stuff. They can be part of that with us while still being at their house in Florida, California, Canada, and such. So it allows them to be active with us right away, lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's so much that, you will always do in person. And I think we're going to see more and more of it happening over video conferencing. And one of the things that we're going to work on right now, next, after we shoot this podcast, is, recording a video about how to buy from Landscape Technology Group. So, Chris, for people who might have questions, where can we learn more about you?
Oh, you can contact me at 970-845-7474 or www.pooleylaw.com. That's Pooley, law.com.
All right, cool. Pooleylaw.com. And Rich, thanks so much for being on the show today. Everyone, I hope you learned some helpful tips on sales, marketing, and using the H2B program. My name's Jack Jostes. Thanks so much for checking out the Landscaper's Guide to Modern Sales and Marketing podcast. We look forward to seeing you next week. Chris, can I get a hell yeah?
Hell yeah.
In on the count of three here. 1, 2, 3.
Hell yeah!
Okay.